Good morning everyone. As Hugh mentioned at the start, I lead on practice innovation for YGB Cymru, which is the Youth Justice Board's division within Wales. And what I'm here to talk to you about today is how we've taken theory on neurobiology, child and adolescent development and offending behaviour and have turned that into practice in a number of Welsh youth offending teams in Wales. Since 2013, we've been working in partnership with the Welsh Government to develop a new approach to not only respond to offending behaviour, but to try to turn the lives around of young people who not only present us with the most challenging behaviour, but also have the most challenging lives. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about the Welsh youth justice system, carrying on from Hugh's stats. Then give you a little bit of detail about our project, but I won't go into too much. Some findings from the evaluation we're currently conducting and where we intend to go next from a public health point of view. So this is what the Welsh youth justice system currently looks like. We have far fewer young people being brought into the formal processes of the criminal justice system. So if we take a look at 2008, and then fast forward to 2015, there's been an 84% decrease in the number of young people being brought into the system. And that essentially is through early intervention and prevention and diversion, and by services coming together and working in a multi-agency way. And then if we flick to the polar end of the system, this for me is quite impressive because I started in 2010. So we now have far fewer young people in our custodial provision as well. We have 2 custodial units in Wales. We have a unit in Park and we have a secure children's home in Neath. And we also place North Wales young people in secure provision in England. But if we take a look at this again, in July in 2008, I think it's 2008, we had 157 young people placed within our secure provision. And then back last year that's been reduced to 39 young people. So generally now at any one time there's between 39 and 45 young people placed within our secure environment. Okay, however, whilst this, the youth justice system can be considered a success, we do have, what remains a concern for us is our reoffending rate. Okay, so what published statistics now show us is that while there are far fewer young people coming into the system and those placed in custody, those that remain in the system are the ones that are more likely to have entrenched behaviours and are more likely to reoffend, but also have quite complex and far-ranging needs which mostly stem from their early childhood experiences. Okay, so what convinced us to try something different then? So the enhanced case management approach that we've developed, it was in response to a piece of profiling work that we undertook in 2012, which looked at the nature of offending of over 300 young people within Wales, whose offending was considered prolific. So those young people who were being sentenced for more than 25 plus offences. And then we set about to undertake further inquiry into the lives of 117 of young people. Which one's the pointer? I'm no good with technology. There we go. So if we focus on the middle bit and think about the adversity that young people experience in childhood. So we've got 48% witnessing family violence, 55% abused and neglected. If we flick down to 79% having some form of social services involvement, 81% without formal qualifications, 95% with substance misuse issues. But actually, the one kind of stat which was quite surprising for us is this middle one here. Around 62% of young people having difficulty coming to terms with either things that were going on in their lives at that time or things that had gone on in their lives in the past. But despite this myriad of complexity, these young people often fall below the threshold for successful referral into those services that are supposed to meet their needs. But they're also the ones that are the least engaged by those services. And I think the one, you think about this complexity of need, most young people in the youth justice system do not have an identified mental health disorder. It's only a small fraction of the population. Is it really 5 minutes? You spoke way too long. So just to give you an idea, I'll fly through this now. So this is what led us to try something different. I always go backwards, sorry. Okay, so we also know that when young people commit an offence, there's a tendency to want to respond to that behaviour quite immediately, and it's usually through doing interventions which have an underpinning of a cognitive behavioural approach. However, mostly for these young people, if we look back at all the stats that Hugh and I presented, it isn't the right thing to do right away. So it's knowing what to do and when to do it, and thinking about how developmental causes give rise to what the presenting needs and behaviours are. So this is our enhanced case management approach. So essentially what it looks like, and we've introduced the kind of cornerstone of clinical psychology within a youth offending team setting, and that's the kind of skill of case formulation. And we've done this working in partnership with the All Wales Forensic Adolescent Consultation and Treatment Service, which I'll refer to now as FACS because it's a mouthful. Okay, so the idea of the approach was to provide a kind of bespoke approach to a small group of young people that had the most difficult behaviours and the most complex needs. So we have something which has been developed for use within a secure children's home, which principally is a framework for practitioners to guide young people through change. And it's referred to as a trauma recovery model developed by Dr. Tricia Scouse and Johnny Matthew. And what we do is provide youth offending team practitioners with comprehensive training in neurobiology, child and adolescent development, trauma attachment, and how to use that within the environment within which they work. So they do this by gathering as much information as they can about a young person and their family within a multi-agency team formulation meeting. And it usually starts with doing a genogram, developmental mapping, and taking all that information and trying to make sense of it. And then the clinical psychologist's role is to actually turn all that information into quite a comprehensive report and a suite of recommendations about how that worker should be working with a young person in a developmentally minded way. I think the other difference between what we're doing now and normal youth offending team practice is that we've introduced clinical supervision. It's not normal practice within a youth offending team setting then for that to take place. So that gives a practitioner the option to either reflect on how they're working with young people, but also to reflect on how that is impacting on them as practitioners. Okay, so if I fly through the evaluation. Okay, so we took a model that was used within a secure setting and tried to see if it would work in the community. So, the first evaluation we did was never going to be an impact evaluation because first of all we needed to know, well, can we transfer this across? So it's very much focused on the implementation at the moment. But what we found is actually we have been able, we had 4 youth offending teams, but 1 dropped out due to resourcing issues. But what we found is that we have been able to transfer the model and apply it within a community setting, and for it to yield practice benefits, not only for the practitioners and the management of young people, but also for the young people themselves. Young people are reporting that they're more engaged in their orders, they trust their workers to do the best for them, and they actually find what the workers are doing with them a lot more meaningful for them. And what I think that, the attrition rates, we've actually found that the young people who are going through the project are less likely to disengage from their order and from working with their workers. I think I've covered some of these off. Yeah, so just to pick up as well, through doing case formulation, it's giving practitioners a much better awareness of where young people are developmentally at, where they've come from, and where they want to get to. So because practitioners have that much better understanding, interventions are then sequenced in accordance with developmental need, and actually young people are yielding much more benefits from the work that's done with them. Okay, so these are just a few comments from practitioners. So again, I've touched on that it's improved engagement by young people. It's empowered, I think this is an important one, the empowerment of yacht practitioners. A lot of the time, practitioners intuitively know what to do, but because of national standards, they need to respond to offending behaviour. It's sometimes knowing that you have the discretion of knowing what not to do and when you can leave that until a much later date. So it's thinking about how you respond to young people's needs and much more in the longer term. Okay, and the use of the Formulation Report, it's given youth offending teams the ability to engage with other public services, particularly health, because health can sometimes be difficult to get a service from. So it's given youth offending teams the evidence they need to get a service. Okay, so where next? I can't believe I've done this in 5 minutes. Okay, so for us, the evidence so far suggests that the proof of concept which we've managed to demonstrate is the right thing to do. So we want to spread this approach to many more youth offending teams, but we also need, we realise that we need to demonstrate the effectiveness of the approach, particularly around the difference it's making to the lives of young people. But we're also aware of the work being undertaken by Public Health Wales at the moment on adverse childhood experiences and the parallels between both our work. So we recognise that to prevent health harming behaviours, early intervention is the best way to do this. But we also recognise that a pragmatic approach needs to be taken right across the lifespan. So we very much view that the enhanced case management approach is part of the response to adverse childhood experiences. So going forward, we are going to be working in partnership with Public Health Wales, the Welsh Government, the Forensic Adolescent Consultation and Treatment Service, the South Wales Police and Crime Commissioner and yachts across South Wales to explore how we trial the approach and evidence the effectiveness going forward. And we're hoping to initiate that in April next year. So I know I galloped through that, but I will be around until lunchtime if anyone wants to ask me any questions about the approach. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions now for Lindsay and me? Mainly him. Oh, Mike?
Lindsay, I just wondered whether the lower than expected number of referrals, that seemed to be one of the very few kind of negative points. Was that due, or would you speculate that that might be due to the fact that the awareness of somebody having had a brain injury, a traumatic brain injury, clinically and across the whole system is pretty low? In other words, a hell of a lot get missed at the acute stage. Would you consider that to be quite likely?
I think potentially it is in the mix, but when we initiated the test, we didn't fully appreciate how long it would take the youth offending teams to get up and running. So we have quite strict criteria because we didn't want to be accused of cherry picking the easiest young people in the youth justice system to work with. So we went for the ones at the high end. So we were very strict on our criteria. And actually, because of the fall in the numbers entering the youth justice system, the few numbers that we now have, we were probably a little bit too optimistic about the numbers of young people that we could take through the approach in the time that we had. Yeah. And because one of our youth offending teams dropped out as well, we had to reduce our numbers.
It is quite interesting that because the youth justice system has been actually very successful, it's one of the areas of justice that's worked pretty well. You're then having people with much more of a constellation of problems entering the system. So this is a perfect approach to have a formulation approach. And one of the other issues is now 18 to 25-year-olds may have this kind of approach as well. The Justice Committee in the UK in the London Parliament has just given a blueprint for change to take account of neuroscience and brain injury across the prison system. So it's interesting that there's maybe an increased opportunity for this to be used more effectively across the systems as well. Over there, the back, and over here, over there.
Yeah, wondering whether you've looked at toxic brain injury as well amongst adolescents in terms of excessive use of alcohol from a young age, which was seen as a key factor for criminality and high risk offending behavior.
Absolutely. So interestingly, thank you. It's a very good question. I was just talking to Tom about that earlier. There's a lack of research in the area of the effect on brain systems of drugs of various types. There's some nice work, again, in New Zealand, looking at the way in which head injury under 5 is associated with more alcohol and drug problems, which then leads to criminality. Then over 5, it's the head injury itself that drives the crime factors. So there's an interplay. There's the whole link between brain injury and alcohol and or drug misuse is also quite interesting. It's a really nice study out in the States on air personnel, showing that there's a spike in addictive behaviours after head injury, mild head injury, and that spike is across the board, but then stays up for alcohol. So alcohol. So basically, I'm saying yes, it's a problem, but we're not quite sure. I mean, it'd be interesting to look in lots of different ways, particularly doing some neuroimaging on how much of the different effects of different drugs have on the brain systems that then also get impacted on. We did find that in one of our studies that cannabis use was higher in the ones with head injury, and that might be they're self-medicating. But it's a story that needs to be properly looked into. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you very much.